call for recording purposes now.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you, Andrew.
welcome, everyone.
Okay, so today's agenda, just to go really quickly through what we're going to be covering, why interns, the value that they bring to your organization. And we'll mostly talk about setting interns up for success and what the mentor's role is. It's an important component of the Eleavte internship program, and we just want to make sure you have the tools and resources to be successful with that. Creating a meaningful experience, identifying the projects that your interns are going to be engaged in. Setting clear expectations from day one. We'll take you through this, and those of you who are joining us for the last couple of years will know about our expectations conversation, and we'll just go through that again. Structured onboarding, I'm going to give you a sample schedule. It's not meant to be something that you have to follow. It's just an idea of some feedback we've gotten and what we use with the Eleavte internship program to pass it along to see if it might benefit your organization. We'll also talk about the art of giving constructive feedback. It's so important as the mentor's role. Our interns are in the development phase of their careers, and we really have an opportunity to be impactful with the feedback that we're giving them. So we'll share some tips and advice in that area. Ongoing support, mentoring beyond onboarding, what you can do to help support your interns' growth, even once they're done with the internship. And then wrapping up the internship, the next steps, we haven't even started, but we'll quickly go through to the end. And then we'll go through a quick programming dates for the summer and what you can expect in terms of that. Okay, but first, welcome. That's Andrew and myself and our intern from last year. So the pictures throughout are most of them have been taken at our in-person networking events. So they've been scattered about, and this was from the New Jersey event. Okay, why interns? The value that they bring. I mean, when you look at your organization, interns really are able to bring fresh perspectives. They bring new ideas and they bring in energy to the organization. They're also workforce development, which is really important, especially now. Investing in future professionals benefits the sector. For many of us that are in the nonprofit arena, we don't necessarily get the attention at career fairs or job fairs at places of higher education. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to introduce students to the benefits of the nonprofit world, equally as to organizations within the for-profit area. Mission alignment. Interns can really help advance your organization's work in meaningful ways. I mean, our intern did a great job of building engagement and building recognition of what Eleavte Plus was doing last summer. We could have never done that without her. Those are our Cleveland-based interns. Setting interns up for success, the mentor's role. And as we go through this, I would love to hear for those of you who have participated over the years, what's worked for you, maybe some of the challenges or some of the things that you've been able to implement that have helped you be more successful in that role. So with the mentor's role, you don't need to be a formal manager. We're just looking for a supportive guide, right? Think of yourself as a coach, a connector, and an encourager. You may, in fact, also be the intern supervisor. Key mentoring elements are providing structure, clear expectations, and timelines. I always like to say sometimes our interns don't even know what they don't even know. So don't make any assumptions, provide clear expectations and timelines. Guidance and encouragement, checking in regularly with your intern and just seeing how they're doing with the project or where they need some additional support. And feedback and growth is so important in this experience. We're really helping our interns to develop skills that they can take with them for the next opportunity and prepare in their career journeys.
And I'd love to jump in and then maybe
Mhm.
ask some of you for your input. But I think one of the being a mentor is hugely impactful. Um, and it's our hope, if kind of an expectation, that the relationship you build with your intern will last far longer than just the summer. We see that today with lots of students who are staying closely connected or even just periodically connected with their mentors. So it's a testament to the impact that you will have on their lives. Now, that doesn't mean you're only a cheerleader. We want you to be a cheerleader. We want you to be encouraging and supportive. But also we want you to provide constructive feedback. We want you to be able to identify to the student when maybe they didn't quite do it as well as you would have expected, or there might have been another way they could have carried out that task or project or whatever, for better results. And so we really do hope and would like you to bring those things to the student's attention, as they happen. And it is sometimes hard, especially if you're not used to mentoring somebody, but they need that as much as they need the positive. And it's not one or the other, it's both. And so we do job readiness training with all of the students before they start. And I tell them, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And that I have asked your mentor to make sure that sometimes you're uncomfortable. And it can be simple things like, okay, you did a good job here, but if you could do it again, what would you have done differently? We learned early on, and we now cover this in job readiness, but some kids didn't know what was appropriate to wear, either on Zooms or in the office. And they had to say, hey, when you come into the office, you need to take your hat off every day. And that made that person a little uncomfortable, and they got our advice. How do I best do that? But the key is, if you're not telling them, they're never going to learn. So that's a huge part of this. And if you want help or want to kind of run through the scenario with us beforehand, you're always welcome to call Carolyn and or me. So I've kind of beat the dead horse on that one, but I think this is the biggest, most significant part of the role of a mentor, is to give praise and encouragement, but also correction where it's appropriate. Um, Anybody have any other observations to make about their own experiences? Okay.
Creating a meaningful experience, identifying projects. This is actually what takes that intentionality, assign work that is relevant, aligning both with the intern skills and your organizational goals, right? Tasks and projects that are challenging but doable. It provides opportunities for growth. Impactful, show the interns that their work matters. We ask that, when we formulate these internships, that we look to be intentional about the scope, ensure the projects are well defined and realistic for the internship timeframe. And right now for our Elevate Plus intern, I'm in the process of kind of going through what are the projects that I want them to work on, what are the timelines, how do they align with what we're trying to do for the summer as an organization. And it does take time. So we appreciate the effort. And as I said, the intentionality that you're putting into the development of these roles. Setting clear expectations from day one. Interns need clear guidance, even on things that may seem obvious. And tonight we actually have our first session of job readiness. So we've got a few of your interns maybe sitting in that session where we'll go through just about every topic that we can possibly think of with a few role plays with them to get them comfortable and ready for day one. But it still absolutely is so important that you give them clear guidance on things like, what are the work hours and availability, communication preferences. And this is, if they're working on a project and you're working remotely or in another office, how do you want them to communicate with you? Do you want to, are you just checking in weekly, or can they text you if they get stuck, or would you prefer they ask somebody else? So it's really important that they have some information and framework to go on. Project goals and deliverables. If you're sitting down with them and you're going through a project, actually putting some, goals in place and some deliverables that we'll get together at the end of the week to discuss where you are in this project or what you've been able to accomplish. And professional behavior and etiquette, as Andrew said, students have been working remotely for a while now. Still attending class some remotely and then some in person. And sometimes it's a matter of just literally waking up from bed and heading over to class. So if you need to tell someone, this is how we dress in the office, that conversation needs to be had. It's really, really important. And the expectations conversation, and we'll share the form that we provide students with. We'll talk tonight about them setting up an expectations call with their mentor. And we'll talk about what are the types of questions they should be asking. And we'll actually make sure that you have a copy of this form as well so that you're prepared for those questions that the intern may ask. And it may be simple things. I mean, we've had a student, is there a refrigerator in the kitchen so I can bring my lunch, right? Things that they would not necessarily think of. What happens if I'm running late, or what happens if I'm out sick? What is the first week going to look like? What does success look like at the end of this internship for me? So we're going to give them some guidance on how to navigate that question, and we'll also make sure you're well prepared for having that question, as we'll provide the same information to you as well. Okay, structured onboarding. And what Andrew said before with the feedback, we've got a little bit of a cheat sheet built into this presentation. So we'll be going through that as well, because as Andrew mentioned, as part of the whole process, that your feedback is critical. Structured onboarding, this is just a sample schedule, and you may already have your onboarding practices and defined and what works best for you. But I just found that in the previous year, the first year I had an intern, I wasn't so intentional about scheduling it. I tried to cram everything in a period of 2 days. I didn't really have anything that I could measure or gauge in place that would let me know, could I build on more to the project, or did I need to reduce back on what my expectations were? So with the help of the New Jersey Department of Labor, because we have our intern is funded through a workforce development fund, the state presented a really great session on onboarding, and I was able to kind of take away what I thought was some really actionable advice. Day one, an orientation and a welcome. That's where you really want to make the intern feel that they're welcome and they're at home in the organization. Introductions to team members. We've even had a few organizations that will schedule time with each of the different departments on the first couple of days, just as introductory calls so the intern can know what's happening in the other areas that they may not be working in. An overview of the organization's mission and work. I think this is so important because it's presenting the big picture to the student. What is the mission of your organization? What are the challenges that your organization is facing? So that they can really feel like they're connected and the work that they're doing for you is impactful. A facility tour and tech setup. I mean, some of you are virtual. Our organization, I'll be completely almost 100% virtual. So we just kind of go through what are the software platforms that we're going to be using? How are we going to be communicating throughout the day? And review any handbook and resources. Is there, one of the things that I share with our intern is a couple of years of our impact report or your annual report. So they can kind of read what's changed, what have we been involved in, what are some of the things that have been the focus, and how has that changed over the last couple of years. I think it's really important to provide that information. And then day two is on day one, I'll kind of talk briefly at a very high level of the projects that they're going to be introducing. But I kind of use in my head, day one is just kind of meet and greet, get them familiar with the organization, what we're going to have them working in, where they plug into. And then day two, I use it as a project overview, kind of going through maybe what are one of the assigned projects. And I actually give them as part of day two, maybe a small project to work on. And it might be something as simple as I want you to do a flyer in Canva for this event. And it gives me the ability to see where is the student in their skill level with what I need them to do, whether it's, I need these names in some type of Excel spreadsheet, and they may come back and say, I'm not really too familiar with how to use those functions. So I find that day two is kind of, you give them a project and it gives you the ability to assess where they are in the knowledge and the skills. And again, introduction to tool and processes, we'll be using Google Calendar. So I'll be sending you things on Google Calendar to see, are they responding? Are they setting things up correctly? And then we'll also go, what are our goals for this first week? And what does it look like? And in our case, because we're virtual, I have kind of have a very scheduled week for our intern. We meet at various times and they're predefined throughout the week. And those meetings have specific goals. So every Monday is like a kickoff meeting. Here's what you can expect for the week. And on Thursday, we actually do a wrap up meeting. Let's review what we did for this week, questions, challenges, how do we do things differently, and kind of give them some examples of what's coming up for the following week. So the first couple of weeks, it's a little bit more hands-on, I found it gives me the opportunity to really assess the intern, comfortableness, and it also gets them comfortable because I find at the end of day one, and even sometimes on the end of day two, and I say, "Do you have any questions?" They don't necessarily have any questions, but I know it's just because they're processing all the information that I've given them. So again, this is not meant to be, something that you follow, but I have found that thinking this out and having actual days in my notebook of we're going to do this today, we're going to do that today, helps me at least keep the framework in place. And then day three is where, we start the hands-on work, and whether it's reviewing what I had them do the day before, right? If it's an example would be then our part, I had them do a flyer in Canva, and I can see that, okay, those aren't the colors, or you forgot to include our logo. And it opens up a whole discussion as the importance of branding, as they're the marketing intern. And it gives me a good sneak into what's their level of comfortableness. And you begin supervised tasks with mentor support, and you identify really an opportunity for skill building opportunities. And again, this is where I really, by day three, we're kind of on a rhythm with this is what our week is going to look like. Here's the expectation for Mondays. Here's where our staff meeting on Tuesdays, we're going to meet with Andrew. So by day three, the hope is that they're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with their role, but they're also not overwhelmed, right? They're still working closely with me. We're really talking through all of the tasks and projects. And it's very much like a scaffolding approach. You're building on what their level of comfortableness is, where they're at, and what you need to get done as an organization. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I know I've thrown out a lot of information, but as I said, I found giving a small project at the beginning really helps build my understanding of where is the intern at. And even just something as simple as I have the intern go out and not study, but look up and all the host organizations. Who are the organizations that we're supporting? What are their missions? So that they get a broader understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to help all of our host partners accomplish.
So I'll just ask if Kylie or Eileen, I know you've had multiple interns over the years. Is there anything that you've kind of learned about getting your interns ready and going that you want to share?
Sure, I can chime in. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to see if I can answer any too. This will be our fourth summer working with Eleavte. And yeah, a lot of what's been said, putting the time in the beginning, introducing the intern to as many team members as possible has been really great, so that they know, and setting really, I found I do need to be explicit. If I'm not here, you can go to these other people and ask them if they need help with anything, and just kind of putting that out there. And then setting a weekly check-in, and letting them know that they can, pile up questions and concerns for that weekly check-in, knowing that they'll have some time with me devoted, but also that if there's anything urgent, letting them know how to reach me before our weekly check-in. So a lot of the stuff y'all are saying, I think every one of these sessions, you keep building your support for us. So it's great to have so much support from your team as we work with these interns.
Well, thank you. Eileen?
Yeah. And for us, it was actually a feedback note from an intern that they enjoyed attending the staff members, the staff meetings 2 years ago. So last year, when we were creating our intern schedule, we made sure that was set in the schedule planning for the summer, and we'll do that again with the interns this year. And it was great to see the rest of staff interacting with them and them learning more about the organization through those all staff meetings. And for me and what we do is our summer has very specific patterns for the education programs. And so in that first week is we're able to do a rough overview of the patterns for the full summer so that each week is then getting a little bit easier as it is following the pattern, and they know what to expect.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both for sharing that. So the art of giving constructive feedback, as Andrew mentioned in the beginning, we will tell the interns tonight, if you get feedback, it's not meant to be criticism, it's helping you grow. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That's what we're trying to help them understand the value of. So feedback is essential. Interns need guidance to grow. One of the things that I like to reference is the start, stop, continue framework. And start is encourage new behaviors or skills, and stop to gently correct unproductive habits, and continue to just reinforce the strength. And the feedback needs to be timely, specific, and actionable. And I can give you a really easy an example that through the application process, we tell students that their resume needs to be labeled or titled with their first name, last name, or initial last name resume. The file that they send to me. I can't tell you how many resumes I got back that just say resume, right? I have no idea whose resume it is. So I will send a nice note to the student. I said the directions tell you to name your resume correctly. Can you please go back in and rename your resume and send it back to me? They send it back to me and I reinforce that behavior. I say, thank you for doing that. It makes it's much more professional to present your application materials named correctly from the beginning. So I hope that with that, the next time they go to send an application, right, or I'll load an application onto an ATS, that they're following the instructions carefully and that they're, labeling their resume correctly. And another thing that we had is just with a report that the intern was printing and not looking at how it was going to print, right? So I was able to just say, great report. Next time, just take a look at print preview and you can see then how someone would be able to print the report. And then just, you want to catch it while they're doing it so that they can just improve or ask you a question about if they don't understand what they're doing. Avoiding vague feedback like good job, as said, you want to say something really specific. You did a great job organizing the report. Next time, why don't you try summarizing key takeaways at the top of it? Why don't you try making sure that it prints correctly? So if the person you're sending it to has to print it, let me show you how to do that. They come back and maybe do that for the next report. And that gives you an opportunity to say, great job with our report and making sure it was set up correctly for printing and viewing. So it's really, intentional, but it's so essential to their growth to have this opportunity for you as their mentor or with the supervisor or the departments that they're working with to get that feedback. Ongoing support, mentoring beyond onboarding. So yes, you're going to be meeting with them for the first couple of days in the onboarding, but beyond that, you want to make sure, as Kaylee said, you have regular check-ins. Don't assume no news is good news. And I made that mistake the first year we had an intern and we were virtual. And I just assumed that they were able to interpret all that I was asking them to do in the way that I wanted it done. And I learned very quickly that it takes a while for an intern, at least in this case, to gain the confidence to ask questions, right? And we'll talk about that tonight with our interns as well. But just don't assume that not hearing from them means that they're doing what they need to be doing or that they understand all that they need to understand. And I always just, well, as I send the intern on a project to do, like, let's just touch base, this afternoon. That way, if you have any questions, you can ask, and then that gives me an ability to see where they're also at. And you may do less and less of that as the summer goes on. Encourage questions, normalize asking for help. They're going to have a lot of questions. They're starting probably in a new organization, in a new industry. So I'd really encourage them to ask questions and be supportive. And professional development, share career advice and networking opportunities. I love the idea of them being able to meet other people in other departments, being able to participate in staff meetings. They may be working in development and you've got a big marketing event that's happening. It's an opportunity for them to maybe hear what's going on that side of the house and expand their knowledge and be curious to other opportunities. And then celebrate progress. Recognize achievements, even small wins. Positive reinforcement is what's helping to build the confidence of that intern. They come to you with a question. Those questions at first, they're probably not going to be very confident, right? To be able to say, that was a great question. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. You're fueling the intern so that the next time he comes back to you with that question, he's feeling, or he or she is feeling a little bit more confident about asking it. So look for these growth opportunities beyond the onboarding process.
Any questions or comments from anyone?
Wrapping up the internship, at the end of the internship, next steps. And we're giving you all this information now, but please note we're going to be in contact with you almost as much as I'm in contact with the interns on a weekly basis, but just whether it's checking in, whether it's letting you know the interns have this professional development scheduled. So, and we will send out towards the end of the internship, I will send out some next steps with some real actionable advice on, the internship's winding down. Here are some of the final conversations you can be having with the intern, looking at, a final reflection conversation. What did they learn? What did they get out of this experience? You're going to be offering constructive final feedback, helping the interns see their growth. Is it measurable? What kind of things can you give them that might be a takeaway? Maybe they mastered Excel and you can see that they really started to get into, and you might have an opportunity to continue your growth with understanding pivot tables or different types of formulas. So you want to be able to offer constructive final feedback, provide career advice and connections. We will tell the interns to make sure they connect with everyone in the organization that they've met on LinkedIn. We'll also ask them to get their internship on their LinkedIn profile. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight with the interns, but you want to be able to provide career advice and connections and introducing them to relevant contacts, and encourage future engagement and consider ways to stay in touch. So one of the things that we'll be talking about with the interns at the end of their internship, as we're doing a wrap-up session with them, is asking for a recommendation or making sure, as I said, that they reach out to the folks that they've worked with at the organizations and they connect with them with sending a note, enjoyed the experience, thank you, looking forward to staying in touch, right? So we're giving them some advice on how to, again, navigate this area. And we're hoping that with your help and encouragement, they can actually stay in touch and you can continue to support their growth. Okay. Wow. A lot of dates. We're going to be very busy. I see this, Andrew. Programming dates for summer 2025. So today we're kicking off. We've got our Elevate Job Readiness. I think I have 12 interns that are scheduled for this evening. And as I said, we'll go through just about everything that we think they need to know to be successful in the internship. And we'll actually copy you off on that slide deck as well, so you can see the information that we're presenting to the interns. One of the first things that we're doing this year is right in the beginning of June, we're offering a master class. And when I say master class, it's more task related. It's going to actually have them doing actionable advice, and that's in Mastering LinkedIn for Success. We've got a communication class that follows that, with the hopes that they'll be able to start to build some really impactful stories that they can use on LinkedIn to expand and develop their professional networks. We are going to be back together, and bringing them all back together to start to build their lateral networking skills, where we'll bring them all together virtually to meet each other and understand the different roles and the different organizations, and also give them an opportunity to start to build that networking and elevator pitch skill that they very much need. And then we've got a bunch of speaker series. We've got 3 set up again for this summer, and as we confirm the speakers on the dates, we will send those out, and they are both open to the interns and the mentors. So on anything that the mentor is invited to, I will include you on the invitation as an optional. And if you can join us, that's wonderful. There's no pressure. All of them are recorded, but we would love to have you there as well. One of the things that we're going to do this summer, which is new in the beginning, right after July 4th, we're going to do a check-in call. And what we hope to do is bring our host partners together, and then we'll also do one for our interns, just to check in and make sure, is there everything going okay? We do end of the internship survey, but I want to make sure that we're proactive. So if something's kind of bubbling up, I don't want to wait to the end to have one of our host partners say this was not a great experience because the intern was doing this, or I don't want the intern to have the same. So we're going to check in formally in a virtual call middle of the summer. And then we have our in-person networking events happening up in various locations. And we'll bring the interns together for a wrap up and next steps to really give them some advice on how to play out this experience and leverage it for their next opportunities. And then we've got a great end of the summer master class where we actually bring in an industry recruiter from the upward mobility industry to talk about recruiter tips and strategies. So right from the trenches of here's what I'm looking for as a recruiter, here's how to stand out, here's what you can do to really position yourself for success. So it's a great way to close out the summer experience. I will copy all of you off as things are happening, and we really encourage where their schedule allows that they attend if they can. And it's also too, I think it's important as a mentor, you ask them, how did that class go? Did they find it beneficial? I think it's really important to help them connect and to reflect back on what they're learning and the professional development that they're receiving throughout the summer. So you'll get this calendar as well. As I said, it'll be a busy summer. We've got a lot planned for them, but I'm super excited for the group that we have for this summer. Andrew?
I'm just checking to see if there are any questions. All right.
Closing out. So the next steps. Andrew, I'll let you talk about the wage reimbursement process.
Okay, so for those of you who are having your intern wages funded by us, we will be distributing those funds in the next couple of weeks. The way that works is we take the hours that you've agreed with Carolyn times the hourly rate, and then I send you one check. If at the end of the summer you find that the student didn't work as many hours as you expected, we're hopeful that you'll refund the balance to us so we can repurpose that for other internships in the future. But it's pretty straightforward. I'll send typically it's to the name that's in our memorandum of understanding to their attention, with the statements explaining how we arrived at the amount of the subsidy or payment if it's 100%. And it's again, pretty straightforward. But if you have any questions or challenges with that, by all means, let me know.
I just had a quick question about that.
Sure.
I was under the impression that it was 80% at the start and then the remaining 20 at the end.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There were two reasons for that. One, in the past, we were often fundraising as we went, and we didn't always have all the cash on hand. But also, it was kind of a hedge against accidentally overpaying wages. But from an administration standpoint, it's a nightmare for everyone. And most hosts are using all the money. So instead of doing it in two tranches, if we get to a point where we don't have enough cash in the account to fund 100% for everybody, I might do it in installments. This year we're fine, but we're really going to kind of move away from that 80-20 just because it adds extra admin that is avoidable.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew. So just to go through the internship check-in points for both hosts and interns, we'll send out a 2-week questionnaire, and it's very general, and many of the responses in the past are it's too early to really tell anything because your first week is spent onboarding, your intern really hasn't gotten into anything, and the interns will say the same thing too. We will ask, how is it going? And many times the response I get is, it's going okay so far, but I just started, ask me in another 2 weeks. So we've got the midsummer check-in call, which will be a virtual group call we'll host one for the host partner mentors, and then we'll bring one for the interns all together. And then the end of the internship survey, which is really important for us to gather feedback and see what we can improve on, what we need to re-examine in order to keep the program growing and to continue to build the stamina and strength of the program. So your feedback is very important. And, just because we have these surveys built in, it doesn't mean at any time you're not, you can't shoot Andrew or I an email, hey, this is a challenge that we're facing, or, can you include this in the next training session that you do? The reason we actually offer the applicant or candidate strategies for success session prior to the students submitting their applications was from feedback that we had gotten from their host partners that the interns weren't necessarily as prepared as they could be for the interview process. So we really do like to receive that feedback, even if it's not the most, positive or rewarding feedback. It's still really important for us. And please feel comfortable sharing that at any point. You don't have to wait for the official survey to come back and, tell us something isn't working or something is working. So we appreciate that very much. Next step, so I'll be sending, if you haven't gotten your intern a copy of your intern's congratulatory letter yet, once you get your intern in place, you'll get that. So you'll see the communication that has gone out to the intern. You'll get a copy of the programming with all of the dates. We've also generated a press release for our organizations that you're welcome to tap in and use to announce your partnership and your summer intern as well for your organization. And with that being said, if anybody has any additional questions.
So I will just to say at this moment, thank you all very much. The role you play, we could not do this without you. You're absolutely critical to what we do and to our mission. So we really appreciate that. And I do hope and I expect that your summer will be as rewarding for you as it is for your interns. And then the last thing, just to reiterate, I would be a hypocrite if I said we don't want your constructive criticism. We really do need to learn and grow. So if there's anything that you encounter, if hey, maybe you just tweak this, or maybe you radically change that, it would be better. Please don't hold back on that. But best wishes for the summer. We're here to support you every step if you need it. But we'll next see you either on one of our calls or certainly during the midsummer check-in. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Take care.